Welcome to CISO Chair, your trusted forum for candid conversations with top digital security leaders. Today's guest is Mr. T.S. Yuwanthiran Sukalingam, Director of Information Security at Mindvalley, seasoned cybersecurity advocate, and a respected advisor to several national and industry bodies in Malaysia. With over 15 years of experience across technology, telecommunications, Mr. Yuvan Thiran has been instrumental in shaping security first cultures in high growth organizations and advancing Malaysia's cyber resilience on national and regional stage. A quick note before we begin the proceedings. CISO Chair is a platform for open dialogues on all things information and cybersecurity. All views, opinions, and thoughts shared by guests and hosts are their own and do not represent those of any entity, organization, or employer. These conversations and perspectives shared are for education and informational purposes only. So let's get started with that. Welcome to the CISO Chair podcast, Mr. Yuwanthiran. Thank you so much for taking time out.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, as for today's podcast framework and segments, we'll touch upon the origin, story, and the professional journey of Mr. Yuwanthiran, Malaysia's cybersecurity landscape, regulatory shifts and compliances, building a security-first culture, leadership lessons and resilience, the future of technology collaboration, and the signature rapid-fire round. This framework grounds the conversation in the realities of Malaysia's fast evolving cyber environment, regulatory upheaval, advanced threats, and the shortage of skilled professionals, which also is a global phenomena, and the critical importance of effective and collaborative leadership. Mr. Yuan Thiran's diverse and cross-industry CISO and leadership perspective ensures the discussion is both insightful and directly relatable to the CISO Chair's mission of elevating cyber leadership across Asia's and global boardrooms. So, with that said, to quickly kick off, can you please touch upon your journey and what sparked your passion for information security and the cyberspace in general?
Good question. Thank you, Ashish, again for having me. So my journey started in IT infrastructure. Yeah, but and I quickly pivoted into cybersecurity when I witnessed firsthand how vulnerable digital systems are. Right, especially when no one owns security holistically. This was not too long ago, probably right up to even 5 years ago. So I stepped into a company where information security or infosec role was very loosely defined, and then I created policies from scratch. Right, starts always with good governance, risk compliances, knowing what you need to comply to, and so on and so forth, before you get into the architecture or the operations part of things. Right. So my current company now, what I've done is I've built a 3-year roadmap for the company, and I've tied it to business outcomes. So I've done this before in previous companies as well. And yeah, right now we are trying to see how we can use security to support the business growth and also, comply to compliances and making sure that we support any acquisitions or mergers and so on.
So, how has your experience at Mindvalley, Carson, digital telecommunications, and beyond shape your view of cybersecurity and leadership in particular?
Okay, so my journey in Kasem was about 2.5 years, and right now I'm in Mine Valley. Prior to Kasem, of course, I was in digital telecommunications. The time I spent in digital telecommunications, in fact, there's one more. Actually, I was also attached briefly through a partner agreement or arrangement with a local banking company as well, a local bank in Malaysia. So having that experience in a highly regulated industry, a semi-regulated industry towards in the end, right now I am in what I would say a loosely regulated industry, has shown me or given me the experience on how different leaderships is required in different types of company or different industries, right? So it has been an amazing learning curve. It has been a very fruitful journey in highly regulated industries. For example, you can somewhat demand certain actions when it comes to implementing security controls. But when you are in a slightly looser regulated industries, then you got to go and look at other creative ways to convince or to work with your partners across other division and departments to strengthen the security, to reduce the risk and all that. So it has been a very different experience that I have.
Is there any pivotal moment or maybe an experience that you could touch upon that influenced your approach to building a secure, resilient organization? It could be something pertaining to maybe an incident or in line with alignment with certain regulation.
Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, for we can talk about the recent Cybersecurity Act, right, 2024. So one thing is when you have such regulations, it raises the bar of across the board for cybersecurity, right? So to answer your question as well, there's a lot of experiences to share here, but I'll just step in one or two in the interest of time. So when I was in telecommunication industry as well, we see a lot of different kind of incidents, threats that happen. So we have actually seen actually nation state actors and even right up to from script PDs right up to nation state actors, their creative process of trying to gain information, what motivates them to penetrate a network or to gain access to a network unethically, or to get hold of data and so on and so forth. So it's those kind of industries where we're able to see a wide variety of threat actors. So you learn a lot from incidents, to be honest, right? They not only do you learn a lot from incidents, but your peers who have been in the IT industry for so long, or even in the business line, now the sudden realization happens to understand why security is important, why information security is important, why security controls are relevant, to what extent security controls needs to be implemented, and so on and so forth. Right. So it drives the conversation. It helps people like in the security industry, whether you're an analyst, engineer, or a CISO yourself, it helps to drive conversations in a very meaningful way. So we learn a lot from incidents. We use incidents to educate others. So it has been an amazing journey.
And again, if you don't mind, maybe if you could take an example, you don't have to mention the company, the precise details and the specifics of the incident, but maybe if there's something that you might have to share, which could be a tangible takeaway for the listener on what was the incident about, what was your thought process, how did you approach it, how did you mitigate it, and maybe reporting part as well.
Yeah, sure. So a very interesting story. I mean, it was a so we have a lot of legacy systems, right? Especially, and I think this is probably true for a lot of companies around the world. The longer you have been in the industry, the more uh, uh, the more all your IT technology or tech stack has, where you haven't evolved and all that. You got a lot of legacy systems that you don't know what kind of protection has been put around it. So this is also the same thing that happened. So we got an attacker, because you normally try to foolproof, or at least try to protect the main core assets, right? Your crown jewels, you try to protect, and you put a lot of protection against them. But these crown jewels, probably whether it is customer facing or not, or whether it is external facing or not, still needs to talk to back end or different types of applications. So what interesting happened was that it was a very targeted attack. They somehow knew that there was legacy systems. They were targeting a very very low hanging server that serves very little purpose to very specific department or division. They were able to gain access to that. But from there, that's when they got access to within your network, and they start to travel around the network until they reach one of your crown jewels, right? So the important thing here is that to invest in detection technologies. If we didn't invest in detection technologies, we wouldn't have known it as well. Yeah. So when we invested in detection technologies, we were able to see, of course, not immediately, but we were able to eventually be able to see something suspicious is happening, right, in that server or in that area. So from there we were able to trace where did this actually originate from, how did they got into the network and all that. Because if you just want to keep on protecting, putting a lot of protection technologies, it's going to be a very expensive cybersecurity program, and most companies cannot afford it. So what we did, we invested in detection technologies, and then we pick and choose when we wanted to kick these cyber criminals out of the network, right? Because as long as they are just moving around or snooping around or trying to gain access to another server and all that, it's great to use that opportunity to learn their signature, to learn the pattern, to learn what kind of technologies that they use to traverse between east to west, for example, within the network. And the more you learn about them, the more you're able to equip yourself with information and to protect against that, right? So, and the moment that we saw that they were about to do something really malicious, like download huge amount of data, we had that ability to react to it, to remediate it, and to kick them out, to clean up the servers, to plug the holes, and we were able to keep them out, right? And when we see repeated incidents, that's when we start looking at, hey, there is a pattern happening over here. Maybe this is the time that we should invest in some sort of protection technology, right? Because if we just go by the book, go by theory, there's a lot of detection, prevention, protection technologies that we can implement, but you're going to end up with a super buffed up or super expensive cybersecurity program that a lot of companies cannot afford, right? So the approach here that we took was just like what I explained. So this knowledge and experience that I gained from the telecommunications industry, when I bring it to a loosely regulated industry, at least for now that it is loosely regulated, I use the same concept. The most important thing that we want to do is we want to at least be able to know when somebody is in our house. All right. We watch them, we observe. When they're about to do something malicious, we have that ability to respond. So the ability to respond, you need to have processes in place, you need to have technical expertise in place, and you also need to have certain technologies in place, right? Which generally remediation or responding technology and detection technology are not that expensive, right? Generally. But protection technologies, because you want to prevent from a single breach even happening, is usually where it's very expensive. Yeah. So this is one of the example that I can share that was a very good learning journey.
Thanks for that. And it sounds like a classic cyber kitchen kind of an example, and typically how these APTs work.
Yes.
And just to also add, like maybe an example from my side, like during the WannaCry time, and because you mentioned about legacy systems, there have been systems that have been identified which haven't been patched for 6 years. And this is again an industry problem and a classic case of why asset management and discovery and periodic updates is so important. So thank you for that. And because we were also talking about this regulations, the Cybersecurity Act 2024, which came into effect from 26th of August 2024, and the Malaysia Cyber Security Strategy MCSS 2025 to 2030 have fundamentally changed cybersecurity requirements from Malaysian organizations. So how is this impacting the CISO role or the role of security leaders, particularly in Malaysia, because this is a country-specific regulation?
Yeah. Actually, Ashish, a great question again, right? So we are very happy. Actually, a lot of security professionals are very happy with the Cybersecurity Act 2024. I think it's about time, right? Because it's always been driven from bottom up. Whenever someone talks about cybersecurity in a particular company, right? It's always going to be because we are hired to be subject matter experts, to be experts in that domain. So we gain knowledge, we understand the risk, we understand what a company needs to do. But a lot of companies, directors or managing directors, or especially the guys with the money, right? It can be the finance team, it can be the marketing team, it can be the CEO himself. They're very business oriented, and they want to build a successful business. So some sort of governance is very important, and I think we are not the only one in the region. There are a lot of other countries in Southeast Asia as well in Asia that has also woken up, I would say, and are starting to implement or enforce stricter rules with new acts and all that. So when the Cybersecurity Act 2024 impacting a CISO role came out, in fact, a lot of CISO were very glad. They were very happy because it forces companies to raise the bar across the board, right? You can be in any position, right? Especially in reporting. How do you making sure that you report cybersecurity incidents to the agency? So that was the first step itself, because a lot of incidents do happen, but it's always swept under the rug. You don't need to declare. You didn't have such regulations that require you to declare, but now you do, right? And the NCII protection and governance. This is also another important things that gives you at least some sort of baseline what kind of security controls you should have. The biggest shift I would say is that the CISOs are now a strategic take part in strategic decisions of the company. Right. Previously, it was more of a operations role. Right. It was more of a reaction. We never got to be part of that boardroom. It's all being said, it's all being encouraged. There were a lot of people trying to convince that CISO should be part of the boardroom discussions, strategic discussions, and all that. But now there's another push factor. Because of this act, there's another push factor. We are now participating in strategic decisions, right? Not just technical advisors, but also, okay, if you're looking at expanding the business this way or any merger and acquisitions, these are the security risks that you need to consider. These are security controls that you need to put put some safeguards around the process of that merger and acquisition or whatever business growth plans that you have, right? So this so same thing we used. What I can share is I was very happy when this came out as well, because I used that opportunity to align Mindvalley's control with, for example, a lot of frameworks like GDPR, CCPA, California Privacy Law. So these are all very important regulations for us. Then we also try to introduce right now the ISO 27001 and ISO 42001, AIMS and ISMS frameworks, and it gives us a amazing collaborating opportunity with the engineering team, with the legal team, and with the finance team for third party reviews, for third party risk assessments, and all that. So I think in my career for the past 12 to 15 years in cybersecurity, because of these acts that came out, it is one of the most amazing time where I get to work with other division heads that I never thought it would be easy working with, right? Legal, marketing, they all want to know, hey, what can we do? What can we help out with, or what should we be doing? So it shows that the conversation is becoming more, a CISO's role is becoming more like a strategic advisor. These are things that is important, all that. We're preparing for a 2025 framework. So like at least for us, and I think a lot of the listeners out there could do the same as well, to be part of that conversation, to take advantage of that act and be part of that conversation, to integrate security in everything that the company do, to in fact maybe even influence the culture of the company, uh, you know to think about security from day one or from day zero, especially.
And we know that on 15 November 2013, the PDPA, Personal Data Protection Act, came into force in Malaysia. So what do you see the adoption for a statute like that?
GDPR definitely has enough teeth, but when you talk about PDPA, actually PDPA has been around for quite some time, right? It was just revised and it was given more tooth, right, in the recent updates. That's how I would see it. And we are not the only one. Like I said, in the region, it was about the same timeline where Thailand updated their PDPA policies. Indonesia had a refresh in their PDPA policy. Singapore is PDPC, if I'm not mistaken. They had an update and all that. So they now hold people more accountable and hold businesses more accountable as well. So that is definitely giving those regulators more tools to go after organization that takes personal data protection lightly. So again, just like how I explained about the Cybersecurity Act, that PDPA update was another amazing milestone that I think a lot of cybersecurity professional and data privacy professional will enjoy as well.
What kind of strategies have you found to be most effective for staying ahead of evolving regulations like the NCII or regulations pertaining to audits or incident reporting, etc.?
So I think the most effective thing is, as a CISO, is to balance the time between what you do internally within the company and to keep yourself abreast with what's evolving in the industry, especially in the industry that you are in, but also in the cybersecurity and information security industry. There's a lot of things to learn from around the world. And you know that certain things are just a matter of time where it's going to be coming. So being part of that conversation early, being part of participating in developing those frameworks or rules or those laws will be amazing if you have the opportunity to do so. Right, in Malaysia we have something called MTFSB, Malaysian Technical Standard Forum Berhad. So they are a governing body, or they are actually a private body, but under Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission. So they help to develop these new frameworks that are relevant, right? At least we start off, and we work with other experts around the nation, right? And also industry experts, academicians. We work with our neighbor countries. We work with people from international communities, Asia Pacific telecommunity. So we try to devise, um, you know, relevant standards that can be implemented, that is relevant for Malaysian laws, that can be used or can be mapped against Malaysian PDPA laws, Malaysian Cybersecurity Act, and all that. So Malaysian businesses here, or at least in the Southeast Asia region, businesses are able to understand, what do I actually need to do to protect the company. In fact, recent news that was released by our Bursa Malaysia. Bursa Malaysia is where all the companies that are public listed companies go to get listed in the stock exchange. They also said that they are going to probably now thinking of having some sort of mandatory cybersecurity rules for public listed companies. This is also to protect the business, but also to protect the public interest as well, right? So the evolution is there. Some countries may already done that before. We take the learning from there. So one way is for all CISOs and security professionals to keep themselves informed of what's happening. This is very important. And this can be done so many ways, right? You can attend forums, you can attend conferences, you can sign up for some reading materials online. Yeah, there's so many ways.
And now to touch upon some challenges part of it. How, in your opinion, has Malaysia's cyber threat landscape evolved in recent years, especially with the rise in ransomware, phishing, and insider threats?
Okay, Malaysian cybersecurity landscape, how has it evolved? Well, definitely, I think not only Malaysia, but everywhere around the world, I think cybersecurity threat landscape is evolving very rapidly, right? Especially in the age of AI right now, right? So or what rather I've seen is that from it has shifted from an opportunities to targeted attacks, right? So, for example, the example that you just gave, right? Ransomware and phishing has become more intelligent right now, right? Last time it was easier to detect phishing, especially email phishing or and all that. It was easier to detect. Now it has become more and more harder, right? And then you have the insider threats. It is more specific. It appears to be more targeted to a specific organization. In fact, sometimes to a specific individual, right? And especially in during the COVID era, where everyone was either working remotely or hybrid, which is until now, right? So the cyber attackers get more, the threat vectors are even more, and the cyber attackers are becoming more and more creative, right? So at Mind Valley, what we do, we lead initiatives to detect this kind of uh, 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 malicious access behavior. We went down the route of behavior monitoring, behavior based identity and access management, for example, insights. All right. So it's important to look at what is a normal pattern of a particular employee, and if there's abnormal behavior from that, at least there should be someone being notified, hey, there is some abnormality happening and there requires certain attention over there. Not necessarily it may be a false positive, but at least, like I said, investing in the detection technology, knowing that this is happening is very important for a cybersecurity team. Yeah. So then what we do, we review this insider risk as well. We see these behavior changes, download of data, how much amount of download data, the frequency of download data and stuff like that. We look at that as well. And we able to look at our third party SaaS solution providers as well. So companies like Mindvalley, I don't know how many companies are like that, but companies like Mindvalley, we use a lot of partners. We'll use a lot of tools and technologies, right? So a very important thing is third party risk assessment, the supply chain to manage the supply chain attack, and also third party security assessments. So we need to know who we want to work with, especially in the age of AI, right? Everybody seems to claim that they are a AI tool, and it excites every department and division to try out, to explore. I want to use this tool. I want to try out that tool. But does the tool really work? Is the tool really secure to use? It could be a SaaS solution tool, right? But what are you integrating back end? And who is actually monitoring that? So every company wants to be agile and move as fast as possible, but security also has to find a way to move as fast as them, because if not, then you will appear like a blocker. If your security assessment is going to take 3 days for you to complete before you give the approval, or even maybe 2 weeks to complete before you give the approval, then they're not going to be very happy with it, because these are things that they want quickly, fast, right? If I want to be able to summarize an entire 100-page document, I don't want my security team to take 5 days to come back and say, yeah, it's approved, you can use this tool, right? So we have to run as fast as the company to be a business enabler, and we have to be able to evolve our security risk assessment and security assessments in part of that as well. Yes, there has been definitely a shift from being reactive to being more proactive. There has been a shift from being opportunities to being to looking at also targeted attacks. These are by the attackers. So the security team also, like I said, need to be from move from reactive to more proactive.
Thank you. Thank you for touching upon how you foster a culture of security at Mind Valley and across the different advisory projects. And the interesting part also is the adoption of this user and entity behavior analytics, the UEBA part, which is something very insightful in terms of how the behavior actually affects the culture aspect of an organization and its security, of course. So just to pivot a bit, we know that again, globally, there is a skills shortage with regards to security, right? In general, how do you mentor new talent and how do you ensure robust succession planning?
Okay, great question. And you touched a little bit about culture, and I want to explain a little bit about culture, because it's also related to the talent management, right? Culture is a very important thing, right? So especially with companies that are startups, companies, small medium enterprises, small medium businesses, they don't have tons of money to invest into expensive solutions. So they depend on their people to safeguard their businesses. They depend on people to safeguard their intellectual property, their products, their services, and so on. So, but how do you make someone, or how do you encourage someone, I would say, to take an interest into security? One thing that worked for me is that making security visible and also relatable to the person, right? So linking it to the people day to day roles, or day to day, just them as a person, right? It's amazing, because when you teach them something that they can use to protect themselves, their personal email, their relationships, or their their in their personal life, their family and all that, that eventually gives them some points to consider on how do they protect data and information for the company as well, right? So tactics that I've used, and these are more recent tactics that I've used, is we ran a cross-functional awareness campaign tied to real security breaches, right? We invited hackers to actually come and probe into our product and see where they can get to. And then we take the learning from that. This all happen live. Is some sort of like a tabletop exercise, but involves the entire company, right? So, and we had to pull in people from legal. We have to pull in people from finance and say, hey, you know why? Look at this. This is why it's important to vet and a third party tool before we approve it for the company to use. And when we have to pull in IT to tell them, look, this is important, why you need to keep your software updated. So your patch management process, your vulnerability management process is important. Your incident managers, your incident management, then your also your monitoring. So we got everyone interested we run it like that program, and we got everybody interested. Now, we are lean company. We are about 250 people, so we could do it that way. I'm not saying that every company out there has to do it that same way. Maybe it won't work for other companies, but the important message here is try to find a creative way to involve more than just the security, IT, or just tech team. Usually you will see only the tech team talking about security. Maximum you will pull in the IT guys, you will pull in the tech guys, the developers or the engineers, right? But we have to go beyond that. We have to go and involve marketing people, sales people in our exercises, in our awareness campaigns. We have to involve legal. Now with the act and all that, the requirement to report and all that, get them in, make them understand the importance. All right. So then we created a gamified Slack nudges for policy reminders, right? Okay. If there's a policy update, a notification goes out to the entire company or specific department division, asking them to take note of this. So these are things that you can automate. So it's like, fighting AI with AI, right? I think this everybody is using this right now. So we also found a way to use like tools like make.com, with our Airtable, with our Google Workspace and all that, our company shared drive and so on. We find, okay, when an update is done, notification goes out to the respective team and all that. And then we collaborated, of course, the most traditional way I think a lot of people do is we collaborated with HR to integrate security into onboarding, into a yearly awareness training and all that. Why this is important in mentorship is because when you put effort into this, you are actually mentoring more people than just the security team itself. Now you got somebody in IT sitting there and you're teaching him about the aspects of security in IT. You get a guy interested in engineering or a developer interested, and you're now mentoring and teaching him the security aspects of in development or in engineering, right? And then outside of tech also, right? Marketing and sales or social media team. A media team, for example, like for us, social media is very important. Recently, we were just working with them, and you get them interested in what are the importance of security in protecting our social media accounts, for example. So I've mentored junior analysts. I've encouraged them to go for certifications that's within a security team. I've also led internal security champions across the department. So then when we have these department champions or division champions, we get them in. We have conversations with them. We even encourage them. Some of them I've even across for the past 10 years, 15 years. Some of them, even from the job that they are doing in social media and all that, in marketing, they said, hey, you know what? This is super interesting. I want to do a career change, switch into cybersecurity. So then I introduced some sort of basic certifications for them to go and explore whether they like it, like CompTIA Security Plus, for example, right? So when they went into it, CompTIA Security Plus, Pentest Plus, they say, hey, you know what? I actually am interested in this topic. I want to know more. I want to get a job where I can apply this knowledge, this new knowledge that I've gained. That's all part of mentoring and solving the talent problem. Another important thing that we use to solve the talent problem, which I think a lot of companies will start doing more, is basically looking at all the low hanging fruit and finding ways to automate that, right? You used to have SOC where you need to have a team to eyeball all the alerts and pick up, these were many many years ago. Nowadays AI can help you do the triaging and do the automation to be able to tell you this is the most critical alert, what it actually means. It's actually affecting your critical asset. What do you specifically need to do? Which team member do you need to reach out to today based on an on-call sheet that's stored somewhere? And it can even trigger that notification to that on-call engineer, get them looking into the issue and so on and so forth. So you got to use security need to evolve as well, need to also develop itself to use automation and AI to solve these talent problems.
It's a very inspiring way, actually, of harnessing the talent availability within, and that also changes life for the people who get introduced to the subject and are willing to invest more, learn and grow for themselves and the organization and the community in general. So I had a question for the company that you work, especially in a non-regulated space. In your opinion, does it make them a little more susceptible to attacks of different sorts? Or you would look at it as an opportunity to lead from the front, even without regulations enforcing you to do something in security space?
There's multiple layers to this question, and there's also even more multiple layers to the answer, right? Because it's not just the industry, it's also the company that you work for. Now, we are generally a e-commerce or edu-tech kind of company, but we like to call ourselves longevity company. We invest in helping people to be better human beings, whether it's physically, mentally, and so on and so forth, right? So, what is the interest rate of cyber attackers to a company like Mindvalley? Probably not as much as a bank or a telco. All right. So that's on the industry level itself, right? That's on industry level itself. Nevertheless, when we go into this company itself, there are, um, if when we look at dark web monitoring forums, for example, we do see interest that people want to gain access to Mindvalley's materials and they want it for free, for example. So there is a financial loss aspect that we are looking at, a financial gain aspect of the attackers that they're looking at. It could be a authentication breach or whatever not. So even small companies, they are definitely exposed to cyber attacks as much as the big companies. So it depends. The only difference is the severity amount of attention. The amount of attention and severity for a company like a smaller medium enterprise or a company that is not performing in the area of a highly regulated industry may be lower, but you still need to introduce some sort of protection for them, something that allows them to grow, something that allows them to protect intellectual property. Like for us, our intellectual property is super important to us, so that's there, right? But there are also small medium enterprises that are in highly regulated industries, right? They are starting out in highly regulated industries. For a very good example was a couple of years back was digital banks. Yeah, digital banks were just starting out. Now they were considered a startup, or they were considered forming a company to become a digital bank, but banking regulations has already been there for so many years, right? And traditional banks has to comply to this comprehensive list of cybersecurity controls and all that. Now these smaller companies, they have limited resources, they have limited amount of resources that they're able to invest or pour into meeting these regulatory requirements. So how do they do it? They would not be able to afford to take cybersecurity as lightly as a company that is not into the banking industry, for example. So like I said, multiple this question has multiple layers. It really depends, goes down to which company you're in, which industry you're in. You have to the key point here is you have to tailor make cybersecurity to that company, knowing which industry it's performing in, knowing who are the customers, knowing who are the partners. Now, this is a very important point. So they have to tailor make the security for that particular company.
Thanks for that. For any company, now this is a classic example of a wellness company, if I may call it. But
Yes.
because again, it is not in the regulated space, is it harder to get management support and funding, or you have to find a middle ground, like any other organization in this space, non-regulated space?
Okay, so not really, because you see, Mind Valley, it's in the longevity business, like what you said, in the mental health space and in that health wellness space. But however, our customer base is a lot of them are from US and Europe. So we need to comply to strict privacy regulations like CCPA, GDPR, and so on and so forth. So that drives a lot of the security initiatives as well. So I don't probably we can say we are fortunate so that we were able to almost effortlessly get support from the executives and from the senior management to at least pay attention and to invest in certain aspect of cybersecurity and data privacy. But then again, remember I was explaining about the tailor-made solution that the company needs. We have to tailor-made the solution for the company's needs. We cannot expect a lean organization such as Mindvalley, especially, to go and invest millions of money into cybersecurity protection. probably our entire cloud cost itself is probably not that much. Yeah. So it wouldn't make sense. A creative solution needs to be put in place, tailor made to that company. What are the regulations we need to comply to? What are the exact controls that we need to put in place and all that? Another thing is that Mindvalley is also a company that adopted AI very quickly in all its product services internally in the company, as well as providing it as a service to all our customers as well. So then, AI Act that was recently launched in Europe became very important. So what do we do then? We also have to keep ourselves abreast with all these latest frameworks, latest regulations. These are all very important. What we did, some of things that we did is we launched a Gen AI governance framework in Mindvalley to control what kind of generative AI tools that are being used, how much they're being used, how they're being used, and so on and so forth. Right. And we also then advocated the explainability of AI tools, and we linked AI implementation. We created the AI management system, which is ISO 42001. So we quickly adopted that, and we are trying to implement some sort of support or some sort of system around that as well. So this is what we're trying to do. Yeah. So these are some of the examples. But if you're talking about, like other companies in the similar industries and all that, we do get the support and idea from regional AI risk sharing networks like ASEAN, a version of the NISA or the European NISA, right? And also the US CISA model, for example. So when we have exposure of the ASEAN version, we also see what kind of new things, new threats that are happening in ASEAN, and we're able to then bring that knowledge and experience back to the company as well.
Thanks for that. Any piece of advice that you would want to give to aspiring security leaders and someone starting out his or her career in information or cybersecurity?
I think one thing that I definitely would like to tell, and I do tell this to a lot of people, especially the junior guys that I started to mentor or coach, right? It's no longer as much as the knowledge of cybersecurity or information security itself. I always believe in one quote that I learned from a very close friend. What I do not know today, I can learn tomorrow, right? That's how fast. In fact, we should change that. What I don't know today, I can learn that in the next 30 minutes, right? With AI. I just put it there, and it's all about how much depth and breadth I want to challenge AI to gain knowledge about a specific topic. And I can, as long as I'm reading and chatting with AI, I can even have conversations with AI to learn about the topic. So, what I would suggest, my advice would be more of equip yourself with the soft skills of how do you convey this information, how do you communicate this information, the importance of the information, how do you work with other people, teamwork, how do you get buy-ins, build business cases, do quality presentations, for example, ask meaningful questions. Now these are soft skills that are still probably lacking in a lot of structured education, and which really helps people in any career, not just security and cyber security, right? In any career, those are the soft skills that helps someone, makes a difference for them to move from point A to point B, or move along in their career, and so on and so forth.
I just wanted to get your peace of mind and your vision on Malaysia as an ASEAN cybersecurity leader.
I really would like to see Malaysia invest a lot more into becoming a powerhouse for AI, for security, and to be able to provide the talent required for the region, not just Malaysia itself. And we're seeing a lot of good initiatives by the government in this area. But we need to, what I think we also need to do is we need to look at relevancy, and we also need to be more aggressive in that investment, right? We need to, so I would really like to see us as a leader, especially in Southeast Asia, or even maybe in fact in Asia, when it comes to topics related to AI, implementing AI, providing product and services in AI and cybersecurity, um, using AI in security and securing the AI is two different things. And so I would like to see us playing a leader role, or more of being in the front, leading the way of how this should take place, and wrapping it all in proper governance, risk, and frameworks.
With the uh, velocity at which developments are happening, I'm very optimistic that your vision will hopefully sooner than later come into becoming a reality. So thank you for your inputs again. The last section is the rapid fire round. Couple of quick questions for you, starting with what is your favorite resource, book, or podcast for cyber leaders?
At the moment, one of my favorite is Cybersecurity Leadership Demystified, I think, right? It's by Dr. Mansoor Hasib. He's a great mindset to guide upcoming CISOs. So that is one of my favorite resources at the moment.
And one technology trend Malaysian CISOs or security leaders should not ignore in 2025 and going forward.
AI governance, right? AI governance is not just a compliance item. It's a risk management, ethics, and explainability rolled into one topic. So the transparency and effectiveness and all that. I think security leaders, CISOs, should definitely pay attention to AI governance and the evolution of AI, because when you talk about new technology becoming new open threat vectors, you really got to watch out for AI.
Thank you so much for that. So I think with that said, I think we come to the end of this podcast, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you again for your time and for all your very valuable inputs. And I hope to stay in touch now and going forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you for having me again.